You've likely heard about PDRN, originating in Korean medical-grade injectables. This ingredient supports skin rejuvenation and is often derived from salmon DNA. Medicate's new ExoPDRN Prismatic Plus serum unlocks the power of non-invasive vegan PDRN through advanced biotechnology. It's proven to boost skin's natural rejuvenation by 50%. Like the clinical treatments it's inspired by, Medicate's ExoPDRN Prismatic Plus serum delivers full-spectrum rejuvenation results to visibly improve skin health, tone, luminosity, firmness, and volume, while reducing the appearance of wrinkles. Visit Medicate.us. That's MEDIK and the number 8.us to discover more. Use code PODCAST20 to save 20% off your first order.
Avoiding your unfinished home projects because you're not sure where to start? Thumbtack knows homes, so you don't have to. Don't know the difference between matte paint finish and satin? Or what that clunking sound from your dryer is? With Thumbtack, you don't have to be a home pro. You just have to hire one. You can hire top-rated pros, see price estimates, and read reviews, all on the app. Download today.
To get the Crime Writers on After Show right now, go to patreon.com/partnersincrimemedia.
I'm Rebecca Lavoie, and this is Crime Writers On. Crime Writers On is the original true crime review podcast that digs into true crime, pop culture, other podcasts. And on this episode, a labor advocate's campaign to unseat a corrupt union boss ends in tragedy and reform. We'll discuss the podcast Coal Survivor from Crooked Media and Campside Media. Joining me to get that done and more is true crime author, TV journalist, and host of These Are Their Stories podcast, my husband and love of my life, Kevin Flynn. Hello, Kevin.
Hello, Rebecca.
Also with us, private investigator, certified pet detective, resident cat lady, and author of the Piper Green series of cozy mysteries, it's Laura Bricker. Hi, Laura.
Hey, Rebecca.
And finally, all the way from Valencia, Spain, author of the City Trilogy, host of Rip Current, More Like Ancient Phalians, and the podcast, soon to be a major motion picture, Strange Arrivals. It's Toby Ball. Que pasa, Toby?
Hola, Rebecca.
So, Kevin, this is Thursday's program.
Yes, it is.
What's coming up on next week's shows?
Okay, on Monday, we're going to talk about the Netflix film based on the bestseller, Remarkably Bright Creatures with Sally Fields. And then podcast everybody's been telling us we got to listen to. It's called Love Trapped.
All right. It's about a former contestant on The Bachelor, right? Love Trapped?
I haven't listened to it yet. Don't spoil it.
It's literally in the description of the podcast.
I haven't downloaded it yet. Don't spoil it.
So, Toby, we are about to review a podcast about labor issues, but I understand that you're in the middle of a really explosive labor issue in there in Spain, right?
There is a nationwide teacher strike.
Why?
I think it's like a whole variety of issues. I was trying to get somebody to explain it to me, but
they only spoke Spanish.
I spoke Spanish.
They spoke Spanish. I was like, can you slow down?
Yeah, your Spanish teacher's on strike.
No, but it has to do with salary, I think course loads and class sizes. It's like all the, it's the same stuff that I think teachers around the world are dealing with, but they take it, so yesterday I was walking around trying to go to this bookstore and just kind of heard all this noise in the direction I was going and walked out onto this, pretty major square in Valencia. And it was just packed with teachers all in these green shirts, just sort of chanting and, blowing on vuvuzelas and banging on drums and stuff. So I had to kind of skirt around them. And then today, I heard all this noise outside our apartment window, went to take a look, and there was this huge demonstration march that went right down our street. I'll put it up on Instagram, some videos of it. But yeah, it's pretty wild. And people were standing out on their balconies, clapping and giving them the thumbs up, shaking their fists and stuff.
The public was cheering for teachers. Imagine that.
It was it was cool. It was definitely a very European scene.
I got to tell you, in Europe, they love a good strike.
Oh, they do. They do.
Oh yeah, they want the feast of Saint Stanislav off. They want.
Is that a real thing? You just made that up.
Not that feast day, but there's feast days that they say we can't possibly work on the Assumption Thursday, right? They really want as much time off as they can get.
There's a taxi strike today too, I think. There's a lot of stuff going on. It's hard to keep track of all the strikes. There was a transit strike about 6 weeks ago, right during FIAS, like when most people are using it, which is the right time to do it, obviously. But there was like delayed subways and just like they get so packed because it was the busiest like travel times of the year. So anyway,
Kevin and I were in Montreal the last time, and there was a big strike of some kind. Remember, there was like that huge parade. The cops were locking down the city.
No. You got that wrong.
It was?
It was a celebration for the Grey Cup.
You're right. But we thought it was a strike.
Yeah, it was.
Because there was a strike going on at the same time. So we're like, this must be.
Oh, yeah, there was some municipal workers too. They were marching alongside,
yes.
but yeah.
And then we thought the police presence was for that, but it was actually for this like hockey thing.
No,
football.
Canadian rules.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I don't know.
Football.
Rebecca, stop contributing.
The Montreal Alouettes.
I get that a lot. I get that a lot. Stop contributing.
Yeah.
I hear it all the time.
Well, all those people have Jock Yablonski to thank.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, Kevin, should we talk about the podcast we're supposed to be talking about?
Yeah, let's do that.
All right, leading off.
Jock was so immersed in the news that he didn't notice the man lurking outside his house. The man who had been sent to kill him. A man named Paul Gilly. He'd been hunting Jock Yablonski for weeks by then. And now he'd made his way to Jock's home.
In the 1960s, United Mine Workers advocate Jock Yablonski bucked his own union for giving in to coal companies on critical issues, including cases of black lung disease and mine safety. And when the evidence revealed union president Tony Boyle had been making secret deals with the companies to enrich himself at the expense of workers, Jablonski mounted a campaign to unseat the labor boss.
Today I am announcing my candidacy for the presidency of the United Mine Workers of America. I do so out of a deep awareness of the insufferable gap between the union leadership and the working miners.
But a challenge to Boyle's iron grip on the UMW was a dangerous proposition. After Jablonski was mysteriously gunned down in his bed, a group of young upstarts discovered the only way to get justice and achieve reform is to bring down the untouchable union boss.
They were men who would never betray Tony as long as he was president of the union. Which is why Chip knew he had one move left. Take the presidency from Tony. Beat him in a new election.
In the latest season of the podcast, Shadow Kingdom, from Crooked Media and Campside Media, Coal Survivor recounts the deadly struggle for power within the United Coal Miners Union. Host Nicolo Majnoni unpacks the plan to silence a reform candidate and the struggle to reorganize unionized labor to improve conditions for union members and not for the comfort of their leaders. Spoiler alert, we're going to be talking about plot points from Coal Survivor. So if you want to remain spoiler-free, go to the estimated time code in our show notes for our thumbs up or thumbs down reviews. Laura Bricker, this is a very Toby-ish podcast, yes or no? And what does that mean?
That means as I started listening to this, I was like, okay, this isn't probably not for me, but Toby's going to love this. It's filled with history about, a movement of the union and corruption and, the system and the people who change it. And it's like listening to a college course and a podcast. Mm-hmm. I'm like, Toby's going to love this.
Toby, is that true? Is this
Accurate.
like listening to a college course and a podcast? And did you, in fact, love it for that reason?
It's like listening to a very entertaining college course. Yeah, this is like made for me.
Yes.
It's a history podcast, particularly labor history. It's got a very sort of Nafakian style to it, which everybody knows I like.
Want to explain Nafakian style to those who may not be familiar with that phrase?
Leon Nafok, who does Slow Burn and did Fiasco. Yeah, it's just these, they're sort of documentary style podcasts, but highly researched, told in sort of a pacey fashion, sort of authoritative. So anyway, yeah, once I started listening to it, and when I was about 10 minutes in, I was like, all right, this is the good stuff as far as I'm concerned.
Put it in my veins, says Toby. Yes.
Yeah. I also had Leon Nafok's name written down.
Laura's napping through the podcast. And Toby's like,
I was
give
like,
me
what
more.
just happened? Yeah. I'm like, oh my God, thank God, a cure for my insomnia.
But Nafakian, that's high praise, because I got to say, ever since we've been doing like top 10s, I don't think a year has gone by where a Leon Nafok podcast hasn't been represented.
Unless he didn't make one.
Unless he didn't make one, right? So it reminds me of Fiasco or a season of Rip Current, quite frankly.
Thank you.
The style isn't quite the same as something like, like Slow Burner, Fiasco, but, because they don't have like the big names, plus, the secretary who was also there. They've got a bunch of people like that, but the thoroughness of the storytelling, it really has some meat to it, and we've got a host that we really like delivering this in a very thorough way. So yeah, it's got a lot of meat to it.
Kevin, were you surprised by how on their face violent the union bosses were?
What I learned actually about the union, holy shit. Holy shit, you go to the convention to elect the president and you speak out for somebody and you get this shit kicked out of you with the microphone? The actual hell.
We're not satisfied.
And he was jerked away from the microphone and beaten with clubs.
Tony's men beat him with clubs, beat him for opposing the new leadership, beat him until he was so bloody they had to call a recess.
I mean, it was ugly.
Yeah, that was pretty rough. I found that all very enlightening, but it really set the stage for like what the stakes were in trying to, challenge the authority of the president of this particular union. The whole thing about Harlan County and how like this particular union was like, it was built on literal wars, right? It's violence in its origin story and like is there throughout. But that part I found, there's a lot of it that I enjoy, but I found that part really enlightening.
So Toby, in the last couple decades, I think the unions that have really not lost a lot of power are police unions.
Yeah.
But it seems like labor unions and other areas, like it used to be like you got a union endorsement and you were a politician and that was that. Teachers union wanted you or the, UAW wanted you or whatever. Can you talk about that sort of ebb and flow and the power of unions historically in this country?
Yeah, well, I think, there's obviously phases, but this is taking place 70s and 80s. I mean, it's like you were describing, getting union endorsements was like a really big deal. And then unions were part of the get out the vote. I mean, they probably still are. But back then, at least the way the news portrayed it was that these were sort of monumental things. And there was also like these union bosses were like public figures, right? That people knew who they were. They wielded a lot of power, but they weren't sort of, politicians that were representing a geographic district, right? They're representing a group, like a type of worker, and as you see in this, and sort of famously amongst a lot of other unions, there was a lot of corruption that was involved, which frustrating because, it's not the workers who are corrupt. It's the leadership of these unions. But, people who are in the union get tarred. Unions in general get tarred. When they were trying to organize a union at University of New Hampshire for, not for professors, but for staff, it was really interesting seeing what the pushback was from people. And it's just like I think now there's such a negative connotation on a lot of people about unions, and I'll talk about this more later, but Kevin was talking about Harlan County. There's a famous documentary I'd never seen before, but I was sort of watched it after I listened to this podcast called Harlan County, USA, which is about the miners' strike against Duke Energy back then, but also has some of the stuff from this podcast. And you see pretty explicitly, why unions are necessary. But that seems to have been lost a little bit these days. I think the perception of unions has changed. The power of unions has changed. And I think the government's attitude towards unions, I think the federal government has largely, softened union power, partly through Supreme Court rulings like Citizens United.
And state legislation like right to work and all that stuff. Yeah,
right to work and stuff. There's a lot of anti-union stuff in the government. So anyway, part of what was interesting, in addition to all the sort of mechanics of the show and stuff is you're looking at a time when I think unions meant more sort of to the national public, even people who weren't in unions, than they do now, which I think unless you're actually in a union, I think they kind of feel like an afterthought when you're looking at the national picture.
I was going to say, Toby, when you were talking about UNH, when I was working at the newspapers here on the Seacoast, there was a time where there was an effort to unionize, and that was in like within the last 20 years, and I remember how secretive we all had to be and how it was kind of terrifying. And when the management found out, I mean, it was definitely a very tense situation, and they didn't end up unionizing. But I remember at the time feeling like we were in like some sort of covert CIA operation.
That's what it's like. I mean, the newsroom where I worked unionized a few years ago, and as I'm management, so there's all these rules about what we can and can't do, what we say, can't say, because it's illegal to do any sort of like union busting activity. But you hire a lawyer for both sides have representation. They had SAG, we had our labor lawyer, and to hear about these conversations, it felt very like not Hoffa-esque, let's say, but like it felt very much like we weren't anti the union, but it felt like even though we weren't anti the union, it was still putting us in a position where there's talking points that you use and stuff, and it is a tense situation. You're not wrong.
Yeah, I was also when I was at the TV station, the videographers and engineers were attempting to unionize, and I think one of the things, and I was supportive of that. And
good for you.
I was, yeah. I would honk the horn when they were out there, and like some other people, because I think that it really benefited their situation. And I think one of the things that we need to, distinguish between our public unions and private unions. And we seem to, generally speaking, support public unions, right? For teachers and for DPW workers. And we're a little suspicious more than once of, police unions. But that's also different.
We are.
Yes, we are.
The four of us.
The four of us, right? Because, it doesn't seem they're really about collective bargaining. They're more about keeping bad cops on the job. But that being said, and we love firefighters unions, et cetera, et cetera. But that ends up being, people end up sort of having bad experiences, or the negative connotation seems to be more towards private unions, in the sense that, the electricians union or something like that. It's like, okay, well, Teamster, yeah, stuff like that. We're like, well, we can't get on the job, we can't start until 5:01 or whatever it is. These kinds of, one of the things that a lot of people find is that they actually kind of like in their private job when the union comes sniffing around, because management ends up a lot of times giving the workforce some of those benefits without having to bring the union in, so it ends up benefiting a lot of other people. But our feelings about unions are complicated, because sometimes, and this ends up being sort of one of the animating features here of this particular story, where you have a union, and the union you would think should be sticking up for their workers when they're getting black lung disease.
Yeah, and dying in crashes.
And nobody's looking at that, or nobody's making a stink about it.
Right.
Or mine safety, or those kinds of things, or, or what's happening with pensions. And when your union leadership doesn't bother sticking up for that.
No calls for reform or change, no going after the coal company. No, in fact, Tony wants people to know that this company, the one with the previous safety violations, where 78 men just died.
This happens to be, in my judgment as president of the United Mine Workers of America, one of the better companies as far as cooperation and safety is concerned, to work with.
What's the point?
What's the point, right? What's the point of collective bargain? What's the point of having the union in the first place if you're not going to do that?
You get a lot of benefits when you join us on Patreon.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Oh.
We are, we're not unionized, but we are kind of a...
Laura and I are looking to unionize.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
All right.
We've been talking about it.
Well, I'm looking to cancel this podcast.
Yeah. Well, I'll just say I'm just saying you and your family better sleep with one eye open.
You know what? I've got cats that will protect.
That's true. That's true. We can find scabs. No, we would never do that.
No.
We would never do that.
Ronald Young Jr. would be a scab.
He would be.
No, he wouldn't.
We'd run in a couple of guests, but they weren't really. It wasn't a picket line they were crossing.
Katie from Dateline, that's Scab.
Hey, at patreon.com/Partners in Crime Media, you get all sorts of exclusive content, including the Crime Writers on After Show, Toby Ball's Deep Dive Book Club podcast, our advice podcast, Married with Podcast, Rebecca and Mel's Something's Off, and Laura Bricker's Leave It to Bricker podcast. If you come in at the Let's Do What We Do level, you get episodes of Crime Writers on early and ad-free, and the Deep Divers. Not only do they get all of that, but they get to be official sponsors of Toby Ball's Deep Dive Book Club podcast and be there in the chat or even like in the show when they record their episodes. Now, another way you can support us is checking out our Amazon storefront, where we have some of our favorite things that you can check out, purchase for yourself. Rebecca, what are this week's Amazon recommendations?
Well, Kevin, this one comes from a listener to Something's Off who sent me a gift via Amazon wishlist. It's a Ninja vertical waffle maker.
Man.
And that shit rules.
Really? So you pour it in the top.
The waffle maker stands up, you pour the batter in the top, and then when the waffle's done, you just pull the lid down and it's just sitting there. But you can use it to make cake waffles. You can use it to make all sorts of like there's recipes in the book that it came with for like cornbread stuffing waffles to use on like Thanksgiving, like or with fried chicken. Like I am obsessed with this waffle maker. I love it so much. Do I not, Kevin? I used it like yesterday on a Thursday.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yep. Didn't even wait for the weekend.
Nope.
Had to immediately break
Waffles
it in.
are for every day.
And Toby, can you tell us what are your listener-inspired Toby Ball's deep cut recommendations?
All right, so for the exercisers out there, I'm going to start off with the Globe Clotrimazole Antifungal Cream, 1% USP, 1 ounce. Antifungal treatment relieves itching, burning, cracking, and scaling associated with athlete's foot. And then it just says Joe. And I can't figure out what the hell that's going to get into.
Is that going to be a jock itch situation?
Yeah,
yes.
Oh. So I'm glad I brought that up.
Thanks.
Yeah, just
Happy Friday.
That's right. Just to ring in the weekend. And then Woofies, advanced dog hip and joint supplement with glucosamine, chondroitin, omega-3 MSM, mainstream media, and green-lipped mussel.
Yes.
60 pork-flavored treats. Flavored chews for small, and it says AN. I think it's animals. So they get these things that are made out of all this other stuff, including green-lipped mussels, and then they flavor it with pork. Is that what I'm?
Yeah.
Yes. Those, by the way, those hip things for dogs, man. Our dog could barely walk, and now he's been taking those for like 2 years, and he's fine. Like they're incredible. Yeah, they're incredible.
Wow.
Is it the green-lipped mussels? Is that what does
no.
it?
No, it's the
That's the
MSM
secret
and
ingredient.
costochondroitin. Yes.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, all that great stuff. Shop us first at amazon.com/shop/Crime Writers On. We earn commissions on qualified purchases.
Kevin.
Yes.
Before we end this very fine business section, do we have any Patreon patron saints of the week this week?
Our Patreon patron saints are Sarah Thorne and Rose Myers. Bless you.
I see what you did there, Rose and Thorn.
You did. You saw that?
I did. A little bit of a theme.
Yeah,
Sarah
sometimes
and
like
Rose, thank you so much for supporting us on Patreon. We literally can't make this podcast unless you do that, especially if Toby and Laura unionize.
Yep.
Oh, it's going to get a lot more expensive around here. But seriously, your contributions to this show, we love making extra content for you, and it keeps us going, making this show for free for everyone. So thank you so much. Kevin?
Yes.
Does thus end the business section?
Thus ends the business section.
Let's fade that music out.
You've likely heard about PDRN, originating in Korean medical-grade injectables. This ingredient supports skin rejuvenation and is often derived from salmon DNA. Medicate's new ExoPDRN Prismatic Plus serum unlocks the power of non-invasive vegan PDRN through advanced biotechnology. It's proven to boost skin's natural rejuvenation by 50%. Like the clinical treatments it's inspired by, Medicate's ExoPDRN Prismatic Plus serum delivers full-spectrum rejuvenation results to visibly improve skin health, tone, luminosity, firmness, and volume, while reducing the appearance of wrinkles. Visit Medicate.us. That's MEDIK and the number 8.us to discover more. Use code PODCAST20 to save 20% off your first order.
I'm Livy Dunn, All-American gymnast and Viore athlete. When you travel and train as much as I do, you find happiness where you are. On the mat or on the sand, movement and comfort are essential. That's why I live in Performance Joggers by Vuori. Made from DreamKnit fabric that's made of 89% recycled materials. Effortlessly soft and made to move as much as I do. My happiness starts here, in the softest joggers on the planet. Get 20% off your first purchase at vuori.com/Livy. That's VUORI.com/LIVVY. Exclusions apply. Not only will you receive 20% off your first purchase, but enjoy free shipping on U.S. orders over $75 and free returns. Go to vuori.com/Livy and discover the full versatility of Vuori clothing. Exclusions apply. Visit the website for full terms and conditions.
Traditional home security only alerts you after a break-in, and that's too late. Simply Safe is changing that.
Stop. This is Simply Safe. Police are on the way.
We don't just alert, we stop crime before it starts. Simply Safe, plan starting around $1 a day. Save 50% on your new system with professional monitoring at simplysafe.com/SXM or with promo code SXM.
Outdoor deterrence requires a Simply Safe Active Guard outdoor protection plan starting at $49.99 a month. Visit simplysafe.com/licenses for alarm license information. Tennessee 2012.
He loves it freezing. She loves it hot. The Pod by 8 Sleep ends the argument for good, with independent temperature zones that keep both of you sleeping deeper. Try it at 8sleep.com.
So, Laura, Kevin hinted at this, but you would think for all the jobs in the world, a union would not just be necessary for coal miners, but would actually advocate for them, because that job seems scary as hell, does it not?
It's literally one of the more terrifying, like, I don't know about you guys, but I have certain things that I think about as like, these are like nightmares of how I would die.
Caves.
Like falling through the ice and being trapped under the ice. But being trapped in a mine and like having, no light, having a fire, you basically, being stuck there and not getting out. And that's like one of the most terrifying things. And then when you think about everything that these miners are exposed to, and just the level, this is a grueling job. And it's one of those things, I can't even imagine being a family member of somebody that's working in a mine. Anytime there was something on the news, in recent, and you see a mine collapse, you're like, who's looking out for these people? And so to hear that story in the beginning where they're talking about trying to get it out and they're like lowering the bucket down, but it's like 20 feet too far away. I'm like, this is like my worst nightmare. And then when you hear that, the union really isn't doing what they should be doing, that is a good jumping off point for like, okay, this is a story of, injustice and why people aren't being protected. And these are people that are really putting their lives on the line every day going down there.
It's almost like the union for this industry does everything, like it could not be worse. First of all, they're protecting an industry that is killing the environment for the sake of keeping so-called good jobs. But then the so-called good jobs don't actually pay particularly well, have shit pensions, and everyone has to live in these goddamn company towns. From the Hunger Games, the Suzanne Collins, and also it sounds like District 5, District 19. Like it's wildly dystopian, but there's all these talking points that make people feel like they are dependent at the same time that they're basically, essentially keeping them indentured. Like it's completely wild. One of the interesting things to me, Toby, was that, when we hear about Ralph Nader's involvement, the way that he used to find causes was he would look through trade journals, and he read like 10 years of trade journals for mining and found no mention of black lung. And he thought, something's probably off here. He joins the cause wholeheartedly and then sort of backs off right before murders happened. What did you think about his involvement and sort of the way that is positioned here in terms of like, there's a bad guy and a good guy in this show, right?
Yeah, there's a bad guy and a good guy. And Nader, he seems like sort of the mercurial guy who kind of shows up and helps get some stuff moving. And I think that's all he kind of saw himself as being, like that was his job. Wasn't necessarily to see anything through, but to sort of lend his name to things.
It's one thing that they were abandoned by the law. It's one thing they were abandoned by the legislatures. It's one thing they were abandoned by the media. But to be abandoned by their own union?
But for the people in the movement who are something like, what happened to Ralph Nader? He just like dropped us. I think it feels like a betrayal. It also kind of puts things in a sort of time that I thought was pretty effective. I mean, it obviously happened, but it's like an interesting detail in that Ralph Nader is such a figure of that era when he's like sort of finding these things about America, usually American products that are unsafe, and calling huge public attention to it. Like he's just this very well known. I mean, he's probably the best known ever sort of public advocate for these things. So for him to hear like how he goes about these things, because I would have just assumed that people would be constantly coming up to him and being like, dude, we got this problem. Can you help us out? But in fact, he's just like pouring through trade journals, which are not usually like sort of enjoyment reading. I mean, it
sounds like the coal trade journals were just fluff pieces, though, Toby.
Yeah,
just like the Cosmo of coal.
Yeah.
Cosmo of coal.
And I just want to, what you were saying before about like company towns and stuff. Again, I hate to kind of veer off from this, but I just...
we expected this, Toby. We expected it.
I just watched Harlan County, USA, and it's probably one of the top 5 or 6 documentaries I've ever seen. But it is showing what the coal miner experience was back then. I mean, you're talking about living in company towns and stuff. Not everybody, but a lot of the workers didn't have indoor plumbing or electricity in their houses. They were essentially living in log cabins. Yeah. They show the working conditions that they're under, and then the violence that they're confronted with. I think those podcasts in that documentary are really good companion pieces, because you sort of see this larger story in the documentary. And then if you watch the film documentary, you see who the people actually are who are being either represented or not represented, or who are fighting. And then you talk about like, how do things get violent, and whatever, these are life and death things that they're sort of negotiating over. And people who are just absolutely like very, very, very poor, doing an incredibly unpleasant and dangerous job for almost nothing. And so, yeah, I mean, it becomes very much like a little guerrilla war.
Yeah. Kevin, there is a crime at the center of this podcast.
Yep.
I mean, we all know that Jimmy Hoffa was disappeared, likely by the mob. According to Martin Scorsese, it was by Joe Pesci, and then he was rolled up in a rug and thrown into a bog. But there is a particularly brutal murder after a series of bungled attempts by this loser that Tony Boyle hired to kill Jock Yablonski. And he wasn't even in your head. He was just the rabble rouser, and he lost the election unfairly, but he did lose it. But it wasn't just Jock that was killed.
Yeah, so technically there are no spoilers in a historical podcast. But, because it's intimated right up front that Jablonski was assassinated, right? And so, because we open with this very suspenseful true crime scene, which is exactly, if you're writing a true crime book, that's exactly the scene would be the prologue, would be chapter 1, right? But I got to say, I was horrified to hear that the wife and the daughter were also murdered. Part of it is because the way Chip, the son, sort of talks about his sister and his mother, it gave, to me, no indication.
I agree. It was great.
That was coming. There was no sort of wistful. He was very joyful about like the things that his sister did. He talks about her like, and maybe she's passed, but like she was fun and she wore the weird things. And so when it came to that, even as like we're hearing the story of the assassins breaking in, I'm like, I wonder how the mother and the daughter got away. And they did it. I'm like, holy fuck.
They killed the daughter first.
Now all 3 tiptoed back up the stairs, pausing at the top. Daughter Charlotte's bedroom to the right, Jock's to the left. The clock ticked past midnight. It was time. Buddy whispered he'd go to Charlotte's room. He motioned to the other 2 to go on to Jock's.
And did they kill the dog? I mean, it just was...
They were going to kill the dog. And then one of them was like, not the dog.
Not the dog.
And I was
no,
like, okay.
I got to draw the line fucking somewhere.
Okay, good. Points for you guys. You didn't kill I can't handle when a dog dies. We know that.
Yeah, but still, it's kind of like, I'm okay with murdering 3 people. But
I'm not, obviously.
Okay. No, not you. Anyway, it doesn't make them look better because they didn't kill the dog to cover the track. Yeah, they do.
Well, the whole thing was terrifying. the phone lines being cut, the tires being slashed, nobody discovers this it's like something out of like a horrible terrorizing crime. Like, and it's just like,
it's like in cold blood is what it's like.
Yeah. And it really sets up just the level of corruption at the center of this union that they would do something so heinous.
Going back to the family for a second, we also got, I think, a really nice portrait of the family right before the murder happened. Like finding out that Jock's wife is so like unbelievably accomplished, and it was going to be like, he's finally going to get out because the election didn't work, whatever, and they're going to let her, follow up on her career, have her writing sort of take center stage. No, absolutely not.
And not insignificant for women in that era.
No.
Not insignificant.
Right. And Laura, but I mean, Tony Boyle is the guy behind all this, and he seems like a real good guy, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Like I'd want to have him over for Christmas dinner.
No.
So I think what's interesting about him though is like, you hear, obviously he's the villain here, but he's from an immigrant family. He worked in a coal mine from a young age. And so you're thinking he might, know what it's like. And you're hoping like this is somebody that's going to, this is where I've been. I want to help the people where I've been. I want to help as he rises through the ranks, but he gets close to the other union president. And it's like his corruption just starts to, you start to see he's getting caught up in the power of, and the political control. He's not looking at the people. And you can just see how it takes on like this. You're like, oh, this is evil, in a way that is, it's just disturbing again, because you're thinking, to me, I'm thinking of these coal miners as just such hardworking people, and he should know that. And you hear about this mine disaster where the people died, and you're thinking, okay, now he's going to step in, and he doesn't step in the way that he should step in.
Don't forget, he has all those portraits of himself, and he named his daughter Tony.
Yes. Tony.
That he can look at. Yeah. It's like mirror, mirror on the wall.
Yes.
Who's the worst labor boss
of them all?
Toby, can you talk about how how Tony finally sort of gets his comeuppance because of Chip?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's an interesting story in that Chip decides that the only way he's going to get justice for his father, Jock, for that murder is by getting Tony out of being head of the union, because as long as he's head, he's protected. So he gets this like sort of ragtag group of people, and there's four in particular, and it's just this interesting group. It's like this like older woman who's a lawyer, and this kid who volunteers out of college to be an intern, and then a guy who is almost a priest, and I can't remember who the other guy was, but yeah, they get to work and doing sort of like this sort of boots on the ground organizing, and going to these they start off by going to Harlan County, which is where Tony's like that's his base of power basically, and they go there and are just like realize they have to bring tough guys with guns basically to make this work, because the potential for violence is so high. But they do this sort of traditional politicking, going district by district, and then realizing
playing the Hunger Games.
Yeah, and then also realizing that there are going to be attempts made by the union to corrupt the election process, and they also have to fight that. So it's really kind of, it is sort of this underdog story, but then they win handily. I mean, they win by like a 2-1 margin. So they're able to convincingly make the case that, the head of the union isn't representing the miners' interests. There's really no way he can recover from that. And it almost feels odd that it has come to that point, because throughout, and maybe this is just the way the podcast is, but you keep seeing these things. It's like, there's got to be some other arrangement that's going on. If he's not going to condemn a mine for having a blast that kills dozens of people, and he's like, well, actually, they're not that bad. Their safety record's pretty. It's like, okay, clearly something is going on. Like, you're the union head. That is not the messaging that you should be putting out there.
Are you saying they voted against their own interests when they voted him in, Toby?
Well, I don't think
they didn't know.
It seemed like in that situation that my sense is that people did not have like 100% information clarity. And I think there was also, I think the way a lot of those things go is that there's a local union head who's telling them how to vote, and when you corrupt those guys, and then that trickles down. So, I wouldn't necessarily put it on the rank and file miner, but that they're in a system that makes it much easier for corrupt people to win. And that's why Chip realized you got to go to the bottom, right? You can't work through the power structure. You have to work with the miners themselves and show them what's going on. And that's how you turn things around.
You've likely heard about PDRN, originating in Korean medical-grade injectables. This ingredient supports skin rejuvenation and is often derived from salmon DNA. Medicate's new ExoPDRN Prismatic Plus serum unlocks the power of non-invasive vegan PDRN through advanced biotechnology. It's proven to boost skin's natural rejuvenation by 50%. Like the clinical treatments it's inspired by, Medicate's ExoPDRN Prismatic Plus serum delivers full-spectrum rejuvenation results to visibly improve skin health, tone, luminosity, firmness, and volume, while reducing the appearance of wrinkles. Visit Medicate.us. That's MEDIK and the number 8.us to discover more. Use code PODCAST20 to save 20% off your first order.
I'm Livy Dunn, All-American gymnast and Viore athlete. When you travel and train as much as I do, you find happiness where you are. On the mat or on the sand, movement and comfort are essential. That's why I live in Performance Joggers by Viore. Made from DreamKnit fabric that's made of 89% recycled materials. Effortlessly soft and made to move as much as I do. My happiness starts here, in the softest joggers on the planet. Get 20% off your first purchase at Viore.com/Livy. That's VUORI.com/LIVVY. Exclusions apply. Not only will you receive 20% off your first purchase, but enjoy free shipping on U.S. orders over $75 and free returns. Go to Viore.com/Livy and discover the full versatility of Viore clothing. Exclusions apply. Visit the website for full terms and conditions.
In the U.S., there's a break-in every 26 seconds. But when intruders step near, Simply Safe Home Security steps up.
Stop. This is Simply Safe. Police are on the way.
Using AI alerts, U.S.-based live agents help deter break-ins. Simply Safe, no long-term contracts. Save 50% on your new system with professional monitoring at simplysafe.com/SXM or with promo code SXM.
Outdoor deterrence requires a Simply Safe Active Guard outdoor protection plan starting at $49.99 a month. Visit simplysafe.com/licenses for alarm license information. Tennessee 2012.
You know that thing where you get an amazing pair of shoes at a really great price and want to tell everyone about it? Yeah, so do we. Here at Designer Shoe Warehouse, we'll give you something to brag about, like the latest styles from brands you love, or the trends everyone's obsessing over, or shoes that make you feel like, well, you. So go ahead, show off a little. Find shoes that get you at prices that get your budget. Head to your DSW store or DSW.com today. DSW, let us surprise you.
All right, let's do what we do. Let's let our listeners know. Should they check out the podcast Coal Survivor from Crooked Media and Campside Media? Laura Bricker, thumbs up or thumbs down for Coal Survivor? Give it to us straight, Laura.
No, I'm going to give it to you straight. And this is what's hard here is that I really can't. I feel like I need to give this a mild thumbs up, even a thumbs up, but it's not my kind of podcast.
That's
but
fair.
This podcast was well researched, well reported, extremely thorough. If you like the type of podcast that Toby Ball likes, a historical podcast that digs into a particular period in American history and world history in a way that is like taking a college course, you will like this podcast. This isn't the type of true crime podcast that's specifically just like centered on like a murder and whodunit. There is a murder in this podcast, but that goes to the larger story of this system that is, the unions and the coal mines and how this happened. This is a big part of labor history. I didn't know all of this before. At the same time, for me, it was just super dense. And I think I would have liked to have learned this story. I think for me, in the way that I digest information, watching it in a documentary would have been the way that I was able to really follow the story. But overall, I mean, this is an extremely well done podcast. It's just, for me, it wasn't my personal preference of style.
All right.
So that's kind of a convoluted answer. I am a thumbs up, but it's not for me.
That's very fair. I've done that before. I've done that with true crime stuff before.
Yeah.
Toby Ball, thumbs up or thumbs down for Cole Survivor. Spoiler alert. Toby's going to give it a thumbs up.
It's a big thumbs up because it is for me. This is like exactly the kind of podcast I like. And it's just the execution I thought was great. It's really well researched. The writing, I think, is really good in this to keep the it feels propulsive, at least to me, throughout. And I think it's an important thing now for the public to hear more about labor unions, because we're headed towards a weird labor situation, people. It's coming down the pike very soon. So I just, I don't know what else to say. As we were talking in the main thing, I was just like kind of comparing it to some of my favorite stuff. So, it's right up there in my estimation with some of the top podcasts of this type that we've listened to. I would suggest, if you like this, to also watch the documentary Harlan County, USA, which is often listed as like one of the top 10 documentaries of all time, but is in part about some of the events in this podcast and in part about a minor strike in Kentucky. So anyway, huge thumbs up for me. I'm sure it'll be in the upper half of the top 10 list at the end of the year.
Kevin Flynn.
Yeah, I'm a thumbs up. I didn't get a chance to say it in the podcast, or in the review portion of the podcast, but I really like this host, Nikolai. Solid job. Very much reminds me, like you say, of Leon Neyfakh, and I think this is really extra textual. But you get a real sense of him in this ad read.
Yes,
that
I made a note on that.
Just really great. And again, that's extra textual, but like it certainly didn't diminish my my pleasure in this podcast. If Toby Ball had a G-spot, this podcast would be fingering it.
Oh, look at that. Yes.
There's a pull quote for you, right? You can put that on the marquee.
Exactly.
Yes, I'm sure that Campside and Crooked are going to like put that right on.
That's a visual. Oh God.
Yeah.
It's a visual if you want. But I got to tell you, but in the end, this is really a love letter to the power of organized labor, about how it works when it works to improve lives. It doesn't shy away from corruption, from violence, from the dark side of organized labor, its historical roots, but it gives the dark so it can provide the light. But in a way, it's solid. It's really interesting. If you're a fan of Fiasco and Slow Burn or Rip Current, then I think you really got to listen to Cole Survivor.
Yeah, I'm giving it a thumbs up. It's interesting what you said about the ads, Kevin. I was thinking the same thing. First of all, I might buy that dental thing. I grind my teeth a lot, as you know.
Use his promo code.
But yeah. I actually think like some public radio stations should listen to this and decide if they feel worse about the journalism because he read an ad for a thing that helps you with your teeth.
Stop being precious, public radio.
Jesus Christ, ridiculous. Yes, he's fine. He sounds great. He's a good host. I like the podcast. I'm giving it a thumbs up. I'm more a little toward Laura, where this isn't my kind of show. It's hard for me to listen to 8 hours of just solely men talking. It's really hard for me, especially when so many of the voices sound alike. The signposting was great. I was able to follow along, but you know how men don't like to hear women talk all the time? Like I sort of have the opposite where like when I hear,
that's not a podcast.
When I hear only men telling a story, man after man after man after man, I sort of like start to zone out a little bit. I don't mean to be reverse sexist, but that's how I feel about listening to this. But I thought it was good. I mean, the production is great. The storytelling is great. It could have been so much more boring. I mean, to be fair, this could have been really boring. It wasn't boring, but it also wasn't for me. And that's okay. I can still give it a thumbs up. I appreciated it. The history is great. I learned a lot. Was not easy to dance to, but I still give it a thumbs up. All right, Laura Bricker, that's going to do it for us. But before we go, do we have a cat of the week this week?
This is an amazing thing that I saw in the news this week. A new species found after 25-year search is named after Sesame Street's Snuffleupagus.
Oh.
It's a fish in Australia,
of course,
that looks like Snuffleupagus. It's a new species of ghost pipefish, and it has been discovered. It uses camouflage to blend into coral reefs and seagrass meadows. And the Sesame Workshop approved naming this fish after Snuffleupagus to celebrate the connection between science and imagination.
Aww.
It's Mr. Snuffleupagus under the sea.
Aww.
You have a problem with Snuffleupagus, Rebecca.
I do?
Yeah. The lesson is that adults won't believe you.
Yes, the lesson is that if you're a child, if you say I have a friend who's told me some stuff, adults are going to be like, no, you don't.
No, you don't.
No, you don't. That's why they made him real in the show.
They brought him back, yeah.
That's why they made him
Snuffy.
Yes, that's why they had the adults finally see him.
This fish has been seen for a while, but only recently named. It was first spotted in 2001 in Papua New Guinea.
No one believed them.
Yeah.
No one believed. And now, he said it's something entirely new to science.
Wow.
And here it is. Look at this thing.
Wow. And of course, it's Australia.
Oh.
That's where all the weird animals live.
Hey, if you want to see that, subscribe to our newsletter because we have the pet of the week. We have our cat of the week. We got the post of the week. We got crime of the week. We got all the stuff of the week right there.
We need to promote the newsletter.
Yeah,
more.
crimewriterson.com. Thanks, Laura Bricker, for bringing us that photo of a
pipefish.
A pipefish.
A
Snuffleupagus fish.
Laura Bricker, if folks want to reach out to you and send stories or their own personal animals to be cat of the week, how can they find you online?
You can find me at Laura Bricker on Instagram and Blue Sky.
Toby Ball, folks want to reach out to you to commiserate about what Kevin said about your love for this podcast. How can they find you online?
Toby Ball 603 on Instagram.
What about you, Kevin?
I'm at Kevin P. Flynn.
You can find me everywhere, including X, including Instagram at Reb Lavoie. Follow the show everywhere at Crime Writers On. Follow us on TikTok. Follow us on Instagram. Follow us everywhere. Get episodes early and ad-free and everything else we make at Patreon at patreon.com/partnersincrimemedia. That is what keeps our show going. Our theme song was composed and performed by Ty Gibbons. I'm the editor, and the EP is Kevin Flynn. This show was recorded in the Caitlin Rogers Project Studio, also known as Studio C, The Closet, in our New Hampshire basement, where we also have multiple very expensive oil paintings of ourselves, as well as our own fleet of Cadillacs and chauffeurs. On behalf of all the crime writers, thanks so much for listening. We will catch you later.
Mine's got tropical fruit drink mix in it right now.
Wait, your wine does?
No, this is this is water.
I thought you said take a drink of that wine, and you're like, I've got tropical. I'm like, that sounds fucked up.
It's 10 a.m. in the morning.
It's 10 a.m. No, I've got.
It's okay. It's 10:15 somewhere.
That's right.
Partners in Crime Media.
You've likely heard about PDRN, originating in Korean medical-grade injectables. This ingredient supports skin rejuvenation and is often derived from salmon DNA. Medicate's new ExoPDRN Prismatic Plus serum unlocks the power of non-invasive vegan PDRN through advanced biotechnology. It's proven to boost skin's natural rejuvenation by 50%. Like the clinical treatments it's inspired by, Medicate's ExoPDRN Prismatic Plus serum delivers full-spectrum rejuvenation results to visibly improve skin health, tone, luminosity, firmness, and volume, while reducing the appearance of wrinkles. Visit Medicate.us. That's MEDIK and the number 8.us to discover more. Use code PODCAST20 to save 20% off your first order.